Hi friends, and welcome back to AmandaMuse. Today is a first in AmandaMuse history. I think, anyway, because I have never talked about periods on my channel. I don't know why. I think that in my age group and older, it's one of these like taboo subjects. Nobody talks about periods, but half the population gets them. Mostly, give or take. So why is it so taboo? So today I want to talk to you about things that I like to use when I do have my period, my menstrual cycle, ant float, whatever the hell you want to call it. Things that make it easier, things that surprised me after I had babies, and we're just going to talk about it. There will likely be a bunch of links below if you're curious on anything I talk about, because I do have some products that I'm sharing. And otherwise, let's jump into it. Now, if you happen to be new to my channel, I would love it if you would consider subscribing. So hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notified, because sometimes YouTube hates me and doesn't push my videos out. Not so awesome. All right, let's do it. So the first thing worth mentioning is that, yeah, I get my period. Surprising, right? And I'm pretty consistent. I've had like the 28-day cycle since as long as I can remember. I got my period pretty young. I was probably like 11. And when I think back to those days, God help me. I remember I was like one of the first kids, I think one of the first girls to get their period, where when my mom had put, like she gave me pads, and I remember having a pad in my backpack and the pad fell out of my backpack. And I've never been so traumatized, probably in all my life. It felt like a big brick had like fallen on the carpet. But most of the kids in my class had no idea what it was because they were all pretty young. I think I was like in 4th grade. Maybe 10, 11, something like that. So anyway, thankfully things have changed and the types of products we used have changed, and I have been using a bunch of new things, and I have been like, every woman I meet, I'm like, oh my God, you need to try this. So I'm just excited to finally share it with you guys. I'm not sure really what's taken me so long to talk about it. I think I was mentioning in the intro, like, to some people, it's still really taboo to discuss your period. I mean, it's funny, I was just having this conversation with my dad and my aunt, and we were talking about periods because obviously my aunt and I have daughters, and I was laughing with my dad saying, when I got my period back in the day, I remember telling my mom that if she told my dad, there would be hell to pay. And now in hindsight, I'm like, for sure she told my dad, like the second I walked away. And he's laughing about it going, yeah, of course she called me. Like, hello, you're our daughter. They were divorced at the time. So it's just funny, like, but yeah, not really so funny, like some of the shame that comes along with having your period. It's really weird why we're so embarrassed by it. But it could just be, of course, that change at that time of our lives, like we're children, you know, and girls are getting their periods younger and younger these days. Anyway, so that was a funny thing. But then as we were talking, my dad, my aunt, and I was mentioning that like, no fault of my grandma, but when I would get my period at my grandma's house, like she would ask me to like take the pad and like put it in a separate bag, and it was this whole like complicated thing to hide the pad. And I sort of am on this mission, I think, like with a lot of things, to, I wouldn't say raise awareness, but kind of like, it's totally normal. And I talk about periods with my daughter, and she's 6 years old, and she understands to a certain degree what's happening. We use proper terms. She understands that sometimes you bleed, like you're not dying. Like, I didn't know what was happening to my body, really, when I got my period. And so I don't want my daughter to be in that situation. I want my son to be pretty well versed in this stuff, so he's not surprised when he encounters women who have their periods, you know? So that's where I'm coming from in that sense. All right, to jump to some things, I guess maybe some info before I jump to the products that I've been using and loving. Interesting, before I had my kids, I had kind of like this irregular cycle as a teenager, which is probably normal as your hormones are balancing out. But I was getting periods like twice a month and it was insane. So I remember going on the pill. So I was on the pill for a really long time. Then I tried the NuvaRing, which, this sounds weird, but I'm convinced the NuvaRing gave me a permanent sinus infection, which when I told a recent doctor about that, he literally laughed out loud. He was like, that's like heaven and earth. Like what, how? But I can swear to you that if you do research about the NuvaRing, there says something about sinus infection. So I don't know what the deal was there, but anyway, but that was a little complicated. You had to like search for it. So there was that. And then when I got married, we just went off the pill. So I was probably on the pill from like 16 to 25 or something like that, 15 to 25. So that's like a long time to be on birth control. And since 2010, I haven't. So I've been 8 years off of birth control. I'm just very careful, and because I don't want no more babies, thank you very much. Also, I've had 2 C-sections, so let's just jump the gun here and say that if anyone's getting surgery, it ain't gonna be me. Cool? Cool. Okay, I digress. So, yeah, 2010, I went off birth control, and that was that. I noticed that my weight stabilized. I wasn't having to worry about taking the pill. I don't love the idea of throwing extra hormones into my body. That is just what, like, I'm not good with it. I'm also not totally comfortable with an IUD. I know this isn't a birth control video, but shit, we're already talking about this stuff, so let's just do it. But I'm not comfortable with an IUD because I've had a lot happen in that area, and I'm just like, no. There's scar tissue. I don't know where the scar tissue is. In fact, it makes me like a little, ugh, so no. So all of that to say is that since the reason I'm talking about this is that after, you know, pre-babies, it was a very, I wouldn't say a fake period, but kind of, you know, you could skip a period if you wanted to. Yeah, like it was just a different, it wasn't like a true period. Now, after I had my kids, Esme, I didn't get my period for like a year and a bit. Jack was the same thing because I was breastfeeding forever. And now I have totally regulated and got back on track, but God help me, it's like a freaking massacre every month. And if my dad is watching this, Dad, just get the hell out of here. It is like, yeah, like I just so heavy, so much happening. I can't take it. And so what I found is like, I've been using tampons and pads. I like to use the 2 pads at night, tampons in the day. And I just found like there was not enough. Like how super can you go? And is there something wrong with me, you know? And so I started to look into cups. I had used a Diva Cup when I was living in Vancouver. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try this out again. And for some reason I had a bit of a mental block about like using the cup. Is it messy? Yeah, to a certain degree. But damn, is it ever convenient? Because you pop that thing in there, it's silicone, right? So there's no like harmful chemicals going in your body, because it's kind of terrifying what's in a tampon. And you just like set it and forget it. Now, if you have a heavy flow, you might have to change it once or twice in the day on your first like few heavy days, but otherwise, it's a dream. I love it. However, on those heavy days, it's not enough because I don't know what's happening, but it's just not enough for me. And I recently discovered period panties. They are incredible. So I've used the brand Thinks, and I've also used which is an American brand, and I've used the Knix Wear, which is a Canadian brand. I like them both for different reasons, and I have probably about 8 or 9 pairs of these underwear. Now keep in mind, they're not cheap. They're like $25 to $35 a pair of underwear, but you reuse them. So if you've never used period underwear, there are tons of videos about them. I do have a pair I can show you. So this would be, show my underwear on YouTube, you know, as you do. They're a very nice like material, very like good quality. They don't look weird, but in here in the back and around the front, it's like a little bit thicker. There's an extra layer there. And if I'm not mistaken, most period underwear companies claim to be able to hold up to 2 tampons worth of liquid. So I absolutely cannot function without these underwear. In fact, it is so comforting to have them. I don't know what it is. You just feel like locked and loaded. I've got the cup or a tampon. I'm not like exclusive to anything really. It's whatever is available and whatever I'm in the mood for, but a cup or a tampon with my period underwear, I feel comfortable. I feel like I'm not ruining any of my nice underwear. And what you do is when you're done, at the end of the day, you rinse them out with cold water. Sometimes I'll use warmer water because I don't love cold to and then you wash them just by themselves on a cold cycle with detergent. I don't put any softener, and I'll put a little bit of vinegar just because vinegar is great to clean things, and then you hang them to dry. And Robert's your mother's brother. It couldn't be easier. The Knix Wear ones that I have are actually thinner than this. I wish I'd brought them up, but I forgot. But they're a thinner material. I went with the athletic ones, and they dry even quicker. Like they're dried in a couple hours. I'm obsessed with them, and I find that a lot of women I speak to, when you kind of get to that different level of conversation, have talked about bladder leakage. You can't do jumping jacks anymore because they feel like, there's a little bit of leakage. I mean, this takes away the need for a panty liner, which I hate. Ugh, I just do not like wearing pads, gross. I will wear these, by the way, at the end of my cycle by themselves, like without tampons or cups or anything like when I know it's a very like light day. So you can do that. I would not recommend wearing them on super heavy flow days because it's just messy. Like I wear it almost as like a secondary support system, if you will, and I love them. So by the way, cups, I forgot to talk to you about those. So this is a Diva Cup bag, but I've used that and I'm not comfortable showing you that on a YouTube video. I mean, some things gotta have a little privacy, but this one I just discovered. How cute is this packaging, by the way? This is from a company called Dot. This is not sponsored. None of this is sponsored. I'm just passionate about these products, and I feel that I don't look forward to my period, but I feel ready every time it comes. So this is the Dot cup. I like that it's black because, let's be honest, periods involve blood and blood can stain things. And so the Diva Cup can get a little bit, you know, tarnished looking. And so what you do is when you get a new one, you boil it, pop it in some boiling water, cleans it, and then you can boil it every month after you're done. You do not have to boil it in between each use. I have a nice light soap, and so at the end of every day, I usually change mine at night. I change it twice a day, change it at night, change it in the morning. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. I'll rinse it out in the sink and wash it. Here's the thing, guys, period blood isn't dirty. It's okay to, like, you know, you empty it in the toilet and then you just run it under cold water with soap or warm water and you clean it before you put it back in your body. Like, there's nothing dirty about what's happening in your body. Do you know what I mean? And any of those thoughts that we have are weird shame thoughts that are put there from weird society things, and like, let's just get rid of that. So it's not a big deal, and if you're really uncomfortable about having a little bit of blood in your sink, you can always spray it down with some soap after. Like, it's not a big deal. So those are the cup and the period underwear that I use, and I love them, and I wanted to get enough underwear, like 9 pairs or whatever I have, to last me an entire cycle. So I've talked about the cups. I've talked about, I do use tampons. I can't remember what brand I like, Playtex, something like that. I like the ones with the applicators. That's just my preference. I will use overnight pads. I'm not a fan of sleeping with a tampon. And I know some women do not like the feeling of having to wear a pad, and that's where the Diva Cup, or I should say a cup, a menstrual cup, is kind of amazing. I also have a pixie cup downstairs. Like, there's so many different options and so many reviews on YouTube. You could like go watch a bunch. So anyway, it's kind of like a personal preference thing. And here's the thing, you guys, it doesn't get lost. There's only so far for this cup to go, okay? And all you gotta do is not panic. You squat down if you feel like you lost the tip and you don't know how to get it out, and just bear down, and honestly, you'll be fine. But I will not be demonstrating that for you. Oh no. The only other thing I wanted to mention is I do use 2 apps. Just recently it's been 2, but for the longest time I was using the Clue app to track my cycles. God, this should totally be sponsored, but it's not. But I like to use an app to track my cycle. I like to know and anticipate when it's coming, especially since I'm not on a pill and nothing's regular, but I'm pretty regular, that 28-day situation. And recently, you guys know I'm obsessed with my Fitbit. Fitbit just released a feature now on the app that allows you to track your cycles. It's not as good as the Clue app, but it's pretty good. The other thing that no one or I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about is ovulation pain. Guys, this is very new, but ever since, I wanna say it's been 3 years now, I am one of those lucky few who get, I think it's called like middle switch. It's like a German word or a Dutch word, or anyway, it's like ovulation pain. Basically, I feel that little effing egg move, and Lord help me, I feel like I'm dying for a good 3 hours. I feel it coming on and I'm like, oh. So now I'm jumping the gun. But now when I know, so because I'm using the apps, I can kind of track when those, like, that ovulation day is coming. I literally am ready. I'm on red alert. When I feel it coming, I pop as much of an Advil as I'm allowed to take to try to just like reduce some of the pain. And then I get my trusty heating pad. This heating pad is a lifesaver. And everything must stop for some reason. I always get it at like 8:30 at night, which is like shitty timing because I'm putting my kids to bed. Usually if Dean is home, I'm like, I gotta lay down. So I get my heating pad, I get my Advil, and I just like breathe through it. And it can be like an hour to 3 hours of discomfort. I don't say I'm in serious pain for 3 hours because like obviously I would see a doctor, but it's like over the course of 3 hours, I can feel this discomfort. So anyway, that's weird. And when I spoke to a doctor about this stuff, here's the kicker. As you start to get into your 30s and 40s, there's stuff called perimenopause that starts to pop up, and there's so much to be discussed about that. I wouldn't say that I'm in it per se, but I think your body naturally starts to go through changes, small little increments of change, Maybe your cycles are longer, maybe they're more, they're just more, maybe you're getting more pain here and there, like it happens. And so anyway, I just wanted to start the discussion today. Those are some of the products that I use. These are just some of the things I go through. I feel a little bit like vulnerable sharing this, to be perfectly honest, because it's not something I talk about on the internet. I'd talk your ear off in real life, but on the internet, I don't necessarily have these conversations. But that said, I feel like that's why I'm here, to hopefully, connect with if there's one or two people who are like, oh my God, that happens to me, and oh my God, I'm gonna try this. I hope it helps. So if you have any questions or comments, I would love to hear them below. Comment below. Let me know what works for you. If you experience any of this, if you like any of these products, I would love to hear that too. Or any products I haven't mentioned and should maybe check out. There's another thing I forgot to tell you. I have a friend of mine, Honor the Temple, who she makes balms like, I think it's not a period balm, but like a cream, and I took it and I applied it in my area where there was cramps happening, and I'm not kidding, it helped. So there's a lot of amazing natural things you can take if that's kind of up your alley, to help with this stuff. So I'm gonna try and link as much as possible below. Let's start the conversation. And that's it. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're new, I would love it if you consider subscribing, and that's it. Keep it real. See you in the next one.